Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast and we do return. It's a big week in store for Tottenham. Massive week in store. Of course, 2 huge games to come, although there feels like there's so many more huge games to come in what feels like a never ever ending season. If you're listening for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We're now also on Blue Sky 2. I'm returning with a cracking panel that are going to join us on this Last Word on Spurs to break down, dissertate everything that's going on inside Spurs right now and more. Joining us on this Last Word on Spurs, I'm joined by Jonny Hamme. I'm joined by Ash over at Spurs Kings TV. And I'm also delighted. Yes, we've got him back. Just about. The brilliant Sean Butler over, of course, at the Spurs Talk Show. Not with a farm in the background, not with a beautiful countryside in the background, with that beautiful chair instead. Look, we're going to open the show, if we can, to begin with the words of Ange Postecoglu on the back of that Chelsea result and quite how he's feeling right now in regards to what these next huge games look like for Tottenham. So we're going to hear from Ange, and we'll be back with you after this very short clip.
It's a tough moment because, you kind of, there are all these tools you could possibly use as a manager when you're going through tough moments to sort of turn things around. And, our limited sort of resources from a playing perspective at the moment doesn't allow us to do that. So you've got to find other ways because, it's not through a lack of effort. The players who are constantly out there because we can't rotate are giving everything they can, but it kind of diminishes performance as well because they probably need a rest, but we can't give them a rest. So, but, I think it's just something we need to kind of tackle head on and keep pushing on. Still plenty sort of to play for us in terms of, between now and January, just to make sure that, we keep performing. I still sense within this squad there's a real kind of conviction in what we're doing, and if we maintain that, then we'll turn our season around.
So there you go, Ange Postecoglu, absolutely insistent Spurs are going to turn their season around. It's a Spurs side that, quite frankly, are quite vulnerable right now, and both Rangers and Southampton will be sensing that opportunity to even heap more misery on us. First up is a return to Glasgow for the Tottenham boss. We got the news ahead of that game that Spurs are going to be without Cristian Romero for what looks like a lengthy period. Suggestions are Romero is going to miss, as things stand, the next 6 weeks with injury. That has come from reports in Argentina. Ange did say after the game it's hugely disappointing with regards to the Romero injury. And like I say, as things stand, we're going to be losing him for Rangers away, Southampton away, that Carabao Cup quarter-final against Manchester United. We've got Liverpool as well that he will miss, and potential games against Forest, Wolves, Newcastle, Tamworth. Don't laugh, still a big game. Arsenal, of course, away in the Premier League as well. So huge loss, Cristian Romero. Quite literally back for a small period. Many would argue should have even played the game. Should Romero have been doing a Cruyff turn in his own box? Look, so much to discuss. And like I say, in terms of the injury news, we do expect Mickey van der Ven to be pulling through as things stand in regards to him at the moment. We've had confirmation from Dan Kilpatrick from the Standard that Vicario is expected to return from a fractured ankle around February in terms of the calendar month. So look, not easy in terms of the injury front. But we'll start actually with our injury news, and then we will lead on. So just so everybody knows the kind of structure of this show, feels like it's weekly dissection topics here, isn't it? We'll obviously be discussing this kind of injury crisis that we're in. We'll then lead on to where we are with a lot of discussion around the board at the moment and Postecoglou's future, and of course, looking ahead to Rangers. I will open up with, if I can, Ash on this one. Ash, love to see you back on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Ash, you know what? Before we come on to all things Tottenham and where we are in terms of the board and the manager and how big the Rangers game is, with regards to the injury front, losing Romero now for quite a big sustained period, how concerning is that for you in terms of this injury crisis? And do you look at the situation where maybe we did rush him back too fast?
Yeah, I think we rushed them both back too fast. I know the plan was for maybe Mickey van der Ven to do 60 to 70 minutes, but I think with Romero's situation, I don't think he was quite ready. However, I'm not sure on his motivations at the moment. That's been in question. Obviously, we're going to get into that, but I know he was linked to Real Madrid a little bit earlier in the season, and there have been a few performances where he's switched off mentally. In terms of, we go back to that first goal we conceded against Leicester. People were questioning his awareness of where Vardy was, and we're looking at him as, you know, one of our sub leaders, one of our vice captains, to kind of be commanding a lot more. I think the aggression is what people are used to seeing from Romero. Have we seen that of late? I'm not too sure. And so when you take away the aggression, you're like, what have you got left from one of our leaders? And we do miss a lot of physicality in our side. I think that's been one thing a lot of Spurs fans have been saying, you know, the team lacks a lot of fighters, a lot of players that, you know, want to get dirty. And Romero was renowned for that. In fact, fans were complaining that he was a bit too physical. Do you know what I mean? Getting booking suspensions and picking up silly fouls. But at the start of the season, well, especially last season, he was getting praised because, you know, he looked like he controlled his temperament. He's been a lot more controlled. But now it seems to be going the other way. And so we need to see that Romero that is a leader on a pitch. I think on the ball, if I'm being totally honest, I think he helps the way we step out and play out from the back. I think technically as a footballer, someone that can drop into the midfield, he's the one that can put a foot on the ball. He's the one that can slow it down or speed it up. He's the one that can pass in between the lines, do balls over the top, switches of play. And with Dragushin, I think he's more of a box defender. I know he played in a back three when he was in Serie A. He's not as I wouldn't say he's a person that passes in between the lines. He's more of a person that plays a little bit more direct. So he's got a different skill set to maybe say Romero. But yeah, you can see the two different types of players, in my opinion, aerially and on the floor as well. They offer different things. And I think for now, you know, I personally still think we especially against Chelsea, I noticed the difference. A lot of people will say, you know, defensively, they wouldn't miss Romero because he did that little flip-flap thing. What's he doing in the box? You know, some people hate that. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, keep it simple. But yeah, I don't know if Ange is asking the players to do this as well. This is another thing I might bring up, because I remember against Man City, it was Bryan Hill that did a Cruyff turn inside the box, actually. But obviously, when we play that high risk, it pays off, because then that ended up being a goal from the back of it. I remember we went to Son and then Son into Kane or something, and then went to Kulu, and Kulu ended up scoring. I think it was the Man City game. But yeah, I'm not too sure if it was Romero, if it wasn't. But either way, it's quite controversial. But yeah, my thoughts on Romero being out for 6 weeks.
Thank you so much, Ash. Look, we are going to come on to Romero's warning with regards to ENIC in very, very short period of this show. Shawnee, I want to bring you in. I'm going to leave Jonny to fester for a second. We're going to leave Jonny to warm up. I am. So I'm bringing Shawnee back in from the sideline. Shawnee, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It is important that I do stress with Romero, because I know this is something that, you know, Ange has made very, very clear, and the club are making very clear at the moment, that this is a different injury to what he suffered before. So where there are claims, like I've said, from my perspective, was he rushed back too soon, and the element of maybe Ange feeling the pressure with regards to how big that Chelsea game was for his own personal future. It really is important that I do stress the case that the injury Romero has picked up is a fresh new injury, not linked at all to the injury previously. Where do you stand, Sean, with regards to Romero's inclusion in that game and Mickey's as well? I mean, was it a case that we simply had to include both? And what I do think it did anyway, as I will just say before I bring you in here, Shawnee, I think it gave everybody a lift in that stadium who saw that team sheet came through, that we have got Mickey van der Ven back alongside Cristian Romero, obviously, before we knew the outcome of that result.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to kind of interpret, really. There's lots of like background noise with regards to Romero. You know, is he pushing for a move? The thing that happened with the Daniel Levy comment, which I know we're going to come to, the continuous seems to be cyclical proximity towards Argentina matches where he's, you know, in the past couple of years where he's had, you know, extended periods out and he's rushed back and goes to play over there for 45. Obviously we're never really sure what actually is going on. We're only ever kind of participating in the in the hearsay afterwards. But I think that there's no smoke without fire, that there is something else going on with regards Romero's availability and his I don't know, happiness, sentiments, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure if there's some 3D chess going on from his agent, you know, in terms of telling him what to say. For what it's worth, look, was it right to put him back? If he was fit and it wasn't the same injury, then I think that there's no real justification to say anything other than, yeah, it was the right decision to bring him back. And it's unfortunate that the injury happened. I'll be honest, though, you know, I think the bigger disappointment for me, this sounds crazy to say this, but losing Ben Davies, because I think Radu Dragusin and Ben Davies have been two of the players that over the last 5 or 6 weeks that have really shone alongside Fraser Foster more so than anybody else in the team. And, you know, just for what it's worth, my sentiments on Romero, I think if we had a full strength squad right now and there was this compounding effect, one of the kind of, not excuses, but the explanations that I think people that want to defend Ange have every right to lean into is the frequency of injuries that we are suffering as a club. I don't think there's any competition in terms of who has had the worst injury record as a club this season. Last season, we also had a similar effect with compounding injuries to players in the same position at the same time. And what that leaves you with is no ability to kind of cover the holes that those sorts of absentees present themselves. Even if you do have a squad full of versatile players, it's not necessarily ever going to be an easy fix to be able to reshape the team into one that can still offer balance when you have 3 or 4 players that all play the same position out at the same time. So losing Ben Davies is a big deal. Losing Romero is a big deal. Obviously, it's a huge deal. In terms of my am I invested in Romero, the player, right now or anymore? If I'm entirely honest, I think he is overrated as a centre back. I think Chelsea have got a very strong track record of being able to garner peak valuations for players that are on the decline. I don't know how they do it as a club, but for me, if there is truth to the sentiment that Romero wants out and wants to go to play for Real Madrid, I think there's a massive valuation that you can get for a player because of his resume saying that he's a World Cup winner and all the things he does, for Argentina. And I think that his stock is really above where he is in reality. So I am not against the idea of cashing in on him if we can use that money and identify a player that is a better fit. Now, that won't happen in January. That's obviously a conversation for the future. But in terms of, is he a big miss? Yes. Was it right to play him? Yes. But for me, I think that Ben Davies, at this stage, would be a bigger, his absence is a bigger hit for me than Romero's. I know that sounds crazy to say.
No, it's not. Like I say, Ben Davies has been performing really well for Spurs in these recent weeks. John, I normally start the show with you, so it's once I thought I'd give you time to compress. Not that you need to be compressed. This club's compressed you enough, to be fair. And they're sending you over to the beautiful Edinburgh coming up as well. Johnny, just to bring you in on this news with Romero, you've been quite vocal on Last Word on Spurs so far during your period on here that because of the way Spurs play, the way they train at such game intensity, we have had a number of significant injuries this season. This one, let's be honest about it, it's a freak injury. How much, Johnny, are you actually frustrated? And we'll come on to his comments soon that seem to have won a lot of adulation amongst the Spurs fan base because he has called out the board, which is great. I mean, we'll come on to that very, very soon. But how much responsibility is there on the player, Johnny, when you look at the actual incident, which certainly led up to him coming off the field where he decides to do a Cruyff turn in his own box? I mean, can we legislate for that when you've got a player that has just returned from injury? We're a club that is under pressure to get a result. He must know how important he is for the team. He's the vice captain. Do you look at him as a player with a sense of responsibility saying, should he be doing that in that moment, which almost accumulatively leads to the injury to some degree?
I mean, obviously not. I mean, I tried to do a Cruyff turn in the bathroom about an hour ago, and I pulled my groins. I nearly didn't make the show. I mean,
in other circumstance, I wouldn't let you off, but we've got to get you on. We've got no choice.
Listen, look, Ange said, there was a report in the Daily Record that I looked where Ange admitted that the Celtic injuries come from the training demands that he makes upon them in training. And he said, then there's no way to protect the players in training. For me, I find it really, really strange. First of all, look, that speech that he gave at the press conference, after listening to that, I'm sure the players are ready to run through brick walls. Some would be ready to go and throw themselves off a bridge. It was quite depressing. And I just think that, someone like Romero, who is a winner, who absolutely categorically hates to lose anything. He hates to concede a goal. I know through the people I know and the conversations that he conceding a goal, he considers a loss. Any goal, even if they win 3-1, for him,
That's the right mentality. That is the right mentality as a defender. Great mentality. Correct mentality.
So he's had that mentality when he was in Italy, where he was Serie A Defender of the Year. He's had that mentality when he's been with Argentina, and he had that with Conte. You know, that was the type of football that they played. And then along comes Ange with this type of football, which exposes the backs, the centre backs. I'm not so sure whether he enjoys playing this football. You know, like Ash said, you know, he's the guy that brings it out. He's the man that, you know, brings it out, delivers it to Bentancur. You know, they're definitely, you know, important cogs in this wheel. But I'm not so sure it's anything to do.
We may have lost Jonny there. Jonny's just frozen on our screen. What I will come back to when Jonny comes back in there. Jonny, can you hear us? You got us? You got us, Jonny? We might be losing Jonny there. We can't hear Jonny. Although I think he thinks he can hear us. John, have you got us? We can't hear you. John, have you got us? Have you got us, John? Do you want to come back out and come back in? We can't hear you. He's gone. We're gonna bring Jonny out and bring Jonny back in. I think what I would be interested to get from Jonny's point there, quite interestingly, is that, you know, Jonny questions whether he enjoys the style of football. I mean, it is quite interesting. We'll come on to this obviously later in the show, that he has been the one advocate as the player that has really backed Ange Postecoglu so far, and has gone as far to say, as you've seen him retweet, that if Ange Postecoglu was going to leave the football club, he also would like to leave, which is quite interesting. So we're going to bring Jonny back in again on that point. John, I'm not sure if you picked up on my point there, John, that I said to you. Can you hear us firstly? Have you got us? No, it's very, very low. Very, very low. The beauties of technology. We're going to bring Jonny back in. That's one point I will just say is that I think it was quite interesting. I mean, I'll bring around the US very quickly because we've got a lot to cover during this show. The reality is that if Romero was not, you know, obviously a fan or in favour of playing this brand of football, then the fact is he wouldn't just be coming out steadfast defending the manager and making it very, very clear on his position, that, and even going so far to say that Ange Postecoglu is the best manager he's actually had at the football club. So as much as I'm sure, I totally agree with Jonny, as much as he absolutely must hate conceding, he is enjoying playing under him, Ash.
Yeah, do you know what it is, bro? I'll be real. I think when he plays for Argentina, it's like he's fit. I think that's where a lot of Spurs fans are getting up a little bit rattled. They're like, rah, how come you're always fit for Argentina? But when it comes to Spurs, it's like, do you know what I'm saying? So I think that's where some wires are being a bit cross for some Spurs fans. Then also, I look at it, he hasn't had the best of seasons. So I understand where a lot of Spurs fans are like, you know what, we could get rid of him. So that's kind of playing on people's minds again. And so when he comes out and he says, look, I will play under this manager. If he goes, I'll go. It's complete contrast to how he was under Conte. Remember, because with Conte, he was like, get him out. If you don't get him out, I'm about to leave.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely. Like, as a Spurs fan, which one do you believe? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm trying to separate emotion and try to dive into the actual factual, look into the behaviors and think, which is the real Romero? We don't know. We've seen so much versions of Romero. Like I said, he's been a bit despondent this season, in my opinion. But then I've said this to certain times, and I'm like, no, he looks like he's behind the boys. He's celebrating with the boys. Now he's talking up with Ange. Is he looking for a transfer move? Do you know what I mean? Since Real Madrid came knocking.
Yeah.
I personally can't really tell. So I'm not the best person to ask, if I'm being totally honest. It's going to be, some people are going to be backing Romero. Obviously, he won't be able to go this January anyway, because if he is injured, then teams can't come in for him anyway. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I'll be interested to see after the 6 weeks he's had the proper rest to see if he can come back. Because you said it is a new injury. Let's see what happens after that. Do you know what I mean? And make an assessment from there.
Totally agree. Look, what we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break of this show for our listeners on audio. We're going to next turn our attention to a lot of obviously different reports in these last few days, reports with regards to the frustration around the board. I think we should highlight this to you. There is reports that there is going to be some form of a protest by fans ahead of the Liverpool fixture, which rolls around in a couple of weeks' time. So it's important that we do stress that to you. If we bring you any further news, or we can bring any further news on what that will look like close to the time, we most certainly will do. That obviously comes on the back of heavy criticism by not just Spurs fans, but by many pundits over the course of the weekend. That I just feel, as many know, listening and watching to Last Word on Spurs, I've said many times before, it just feels like Tottenham are really existing right now, rather than really having any kind of an aim or having any kind of an ambition. Before we do go for that break, Jonny, can you hear us there?
I can hear you now. Do you know what it was? Someone walked past with a pair of my headphones, and they took the sound with them.
Right, Jonny, I'm going to do one favour, just for your sake of a right to reply. I said we lost you there, that you mentioned about a comment saying you're not sure if Romero does enjoy playing the brand of football under Ange at the moment. Just to allow you to come back on that right of reply, I said that from my perspective, he's come out and said that Ange Postecoglu is the best manager he's had at Tottenham. And to also obviously go again on that point, he's also made it very, very clear that if Ange Postecoglu was to leave, he also wants to leave. So what's your rebuttal to that, if you have one, out of interest?
If you knew some of the goings-on that happens in football and what they're told to say and what they're told by the club to project, unity, togetherness, and so on and so forth. And listen, we know that isn't possible, with a group of 25 people for everyone to be united.
Of course.
And, I think we see a different Tottenham Hotspur to the one that we saw when we scored a late goal against those incredible champions Sheffield United, when they all rushed onto the pitch, or the scenes after, Liverpool, that camaraderie, that togetherness. What I see now is what we saw at Fulham when they scored their goal to make it 1-1, and the heads dropped. No one looking at each other, no one geeing it up. Even the celebration was really muted. There doesn't seem to be anyone who's taking responsibility, or that it's left.
Jonny, thank you so much. I appreciate, guys. There might be a slight interference here with my internet. I can't believe it. My internet's on the blink here. What we are going to do, I'm hoping you guys can hear us okay. We are going to go now for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. And just again, reiterate that point, as I said a couple of minutes ago before I allowed Jonny that right to reply. As you are aware, there's been a lot of talk over these last few days in relation to where we are in regards to the current hierarchy, where we are in regards to the current manager. So we're going to bring you a flavour of what has been said over these last few days. And quite interestingly, we're going to play you a clip that was from Jamie Carragher. This goes back dating 4 or 5 years ago, where he did warn Tottenham, had they not produced or backed Mauricio Pochettino at the time of the rebuild, you knew what was going to come. So we're going to bring you those clips into the show. We're going to come back into where we are right now in regards to the board, in regards to the manager. And then we are going to look ahead to Rangers to come in a huge game for Tottenham Hotspur on Thursday, where Jonny is going to be present and there. We're going to be back with you after this very, very short break.
Didn't recruit in the summer, and the team we're looking at now, I feel as if that was the team I was watching 2 years ago, which was brilliant, almost from the title with, you stand still, you fall behind, and I don't think it's sustainable what they spend on the transfer market and getting into the Champions League year in, year out. That is not down to the sort of great business sense of the club or the board. That's to do with the brilliance of Pochettino and the players that they have at this moment, what he's actually getting out of them. But how do they ever go again? Are we just going to sit here for the next 10 years and say the same thing about Tottenham? Well done getting the Champions League. Is there not another level?
No, Liverpool haven't won a title for 30 odd years.
Yeah,
we keep
but they're trying. They're trying. They may not happen.
No,
Are they really giving absolutely everything for Pochettino, Harry Kane, the players that they have?
What are you asking for? What are you asking?
You mentioned Liverpool going a long time without the league, but if you look at both clubs, they're trying to win the league. I think Tottenham are happy with top 4, and it's just like, oh, got the money for the top 4. That'll pay for the stadium. It'll pay for this. It means we won't have to spend much. We don't need to sign anyone in the summer because we've got this good squad. We've all got new contracts, whatever. At least teams are actually. It's not about they have to win. Actually try and win. Tottenham can't win if they don't bring a player in the summer, win the league or go for things. They can't.
The robust Tottenham team that we've ever seen, we shouldn't get tired of them and start...
Well, give them a bit of help. No. So the best team they've had for 30 years, the best manager they've had for 30 years, they're not spineless, they've got a toughness, they've got top players. Why not try and push it an extra level?
The players they probably...
Tottenham missed out on Mane through wages, Wijnaldum wages both at Liverpool. You think of the impact Mane's had. They bought Sissoko for the same price as Mane. Maybe Sissoko's wages were cheaper. Mane's a far better player than Sissoko.
But answer this question, Gary.
The best operator in football, Daniel Levy, he works within... What are you shaking your head at?
I'm shaking my head. When you say the best...
He's the best operator in football. He works within...
Because they've got a net spend of 20 million.
He doesn't get...
What was the actual figure? I can't even remember.
29 million.
29 million. They're in the Champions League every year. You've got Premier League money. How can you only spend 29 million? Stoke spend 60 million. They're in the Championship. £1 million. Well, you can't spend 29 million net Pochettino in 4 years. This is all going to fall away soon. Pochettino's going to move on, one of the players are going to move on, and they'll look back at this time, an opportunity...
What are you advocating? They spend more than before?
So they couldn't match wages for Mane.
So quite interesting, obviously. That was Jamie Carragher's take, and that was 6 years ago, which was at the time highlighting the case that had Tottenham not backed Mauricio Pochettino, this could be coming. And just to bring it into emphasis and focus, this was Jamie Carragher on the weekend on the back of that defeat to Chelsea. We're going to open up back after this.
It's probably some time for somebody else to come in because to not win a trophy in that period of time with the managers they've had, they've never really gone out of the way in the transfer market. They spent decent money without, blowing other teams out the water. The wage bill's always one of the smallest, and you're never going to get the best players. So it might be a time for actually a Daniel Levy, who I've been a supporter because you look at the actual work that he's done. But now that work's done in terms of a stadium and a training ground, someone else needs to be in charge of this football club.
He's had 14 managers in 23 years. That's nearly a manager every year and a half. So that's something that has to change.
He's not making the right decision if he's changing managers that often.
That's what I'm saying, and it's never him.
So quite interestingly there, obviously, there's been parallel debates over this weekend with regards to the spotlight really being shone on ENIC and Daniel Levy in particular. And if there's one thing you all know as Spurs fans, what Daniel Levy absolutely hates, it's negative PR. Right? He absolutely despises negative PR. And as soon as there is any form of negative PR, the man wants to change. Whether it's change the manager, change the coaching staff, change the technical director, change anybody within the football club, he'll look to do that. So this is an interesting period where there is firm spotlight on him right now. John, I will open up back with you because we lost you there for a period. What do you make of the actual spotlight being shone on ENIC and in particular Daniel Levy over the case of the weekend? And with reports there are going to be potential protests now ahead of the Liverpool game. We'll come on to Ange shortly, but just on ENIC at the moment.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts in regards to now this emphasis being shone on the board by national media, not just Spurs fans that have really, for a very, very long time, had the feeling that really there is now a time for a change needed or a change needed at this time?
Well, you say Daniel hates negative PR. I sometimes feel, often feel that he's, he creates his own bad PR. I don't know who he's using as a PR agency. Some of the timings of the things he's done, whether it be, sacking managers or announcing, concessions were being removed or whatever it is. He has quite often an inability to read the room. And for some unknown reason, listen, there's been so many Levy out surges and then they fade away. For some unknown reason, it really is starting to gather a pace now where even the people who were very staunch Levy-ins or sat on the fence are being very vocal now. I don't know whether it's just the 24 years of, mistakes. And as I said, so many managers, a manager every sort of 18 months. I think it's wearing thin on some of the fan base. Look, as Sean and I have discussed many times, there's so few that have gone on to win a title. Only one can win the title. And that group is so small. For us to expect to be a title winner is maybe, where we are now is expecting too much. But what we all want as Spurs fans is to be competitive, really competitive. Be up there every year. We might not win the league, but we're third and fourth or second, or we're nearly there and we fail or what have you. Or we're getting to a cup final or we're winning the odd cup. We don't expect to be winning trophies left, right and centre, but we expect progress. And what we've seen over the last 5 years, unfortunately, since Pochettino wasn't backed for those 500 days, the club has gone backwards on the pitch. Forget the financial and how well we've done and how we've become one of the biggest clubs in global sport. Yep. What matters to the fans more than anything is the performance of the football club on the pitch. That's first and foremost. We are a football club more than anything else. And that's where we've consistently come up short. When you consider where we were ahead of Arsenal and ahead of Liverpool and Villa and Newcastle, and when you see where we've been, look, I don't want to go in on Ange, but I'm just saying how we have been. We seem to be sinking backwards. Fans want to see progression. We've seen regression, and it seems to have fired certain people up now more than ever. Like I said, the ones that sit on the fence. And, as much as I am not a fan of Ange, to sack him now, I spoke about this to Sean and others, what will we achieve by sacking him today? Nothing. He has to be able to go to Southampton and Man United, and then we have to reappraise, and see where we are. And if he loses those 2 games, but I just want to say one thing, which I didn't get a chance to say.
Please do.
Before, when he talked about he hasn't had the ability to rotate. Now, come on, Ange, please, right? Okay. You chose not to put Reggie on, and you chose not to put Jed Spence into the Europa League squad. And when you had league games, and you have chosen not to give Jed Spence a minute, not to give Reggie on a minute, and then cry that, we got no options and the players are tired. When you're playing, you're training heavy. You're not playing these players who are itching to get on the pitch and then crying foul of it. I think there's so much now BS that the club have had to, the fans have had to listen to, that now I think it's fired them up. I don't think this protest against Liverpool is going to be a violent one or a crazy one. I think it's just maybe potentially the start of a peaceful movement. We shall see.
That's what we all hope. Listen, I think at the end of the day, I've always made this point on Last Word on Spurs, if I can kind of come over to Shawnee here, that I've always said people have got every right to protest. The football club, long after ENIC are here, it's the fans' club. It's our football club. Conscious not many people might think these are the custodians, don't get me wrong, but it will always be our football club. They'll never take that away from us. We will be here long after ENIC are gone. And I think it has come to that point now, Shawnee, where I'm seeing the more, which I'd like to maybe class myself in, the more moderate fans, that I've always been quite a moderate, logical, sensible, fair, balanced fan, that I only want to see the best from my football club. And I only want to see the club, with ambition, with challenging. And to be fair, there was a period under ENIC, and people might not like me saying this, where I did feel that. I felt during Rizzo's early period where, we were building towards the training ground, the stadium, it just felt the club did have a plan. They did know what they were looking to do. It just feels like now, if I'm going to be honest with you, we are just quite simply existing with no real target in mind, with no real goal in mind. I just feel like we don't quite know really what the plan is. And that's why I do feel now, like I said, you're getting now more moderate fans than ever. Even those type of fans are sitting there questioning, where is this club going? And I think that kind of says it all why there are so many Spurs fans out there right now, like I said in the previous show, so disconnected like me now, that do feel the need for change. Where are you, Shawnee, with regards to where we are right now under this current ownership? And has it surprised you that over this national media weekend, quite honestly, ENIC really have had a light shot on them that maybe not like before?
Yeah, look, I mean, people that watch my channel will know my stance on it. I first and foremost, I always support the protests. I'm not someone that would ever join one. I don't see the value in it. I've looked and I can't find a single example of a Premier League club or otherwise that's owner has directly sold their club as a consequence of normal protests. You know, you look at Oxford United. I think it was their chairman. I mean, some of the stuff that guy, he went to prison for 12 years. And in that period, they still couldn't get the club to sell until he got the price. And unfortunately, business owners are not going to take traditional pressures to accept pricing underneath the valuation of their asset just because other fans who don't understand what they're, for the most part, and I genuinely mean this, I think that there is a lot that goes on in the ownership's mandate that is misunderstood or not understood by the average fan. Now, where I agree with Jonny and I agree with Jamie Carragher to a degree is that, you know, I think that the fans don't care about all that stuff. They care about what's happening on the football pitch. And for what it's worth, I think Jamie Carragher talks out of both sides of his mouth. He's got a track record of putting his opinions out. Whichever way the wind is blowing, you'll suddenly find him talking that side because he likes the popularity, the popularity piece. But I think that there's a lot to say about the other side of that argument that isn't represented anywhere. There's a lot of context, a lot of nuance. The 500 days came just as we were transforming into the new stadium with £1 billion of debt. I think that we accelerated beyond our station in that in that last couple of years under Pochettino. I think that Pochettino himself sort of talked himself out of a job as he was in the pre-match to that press conference talking about in the Champions League final, what do I do next? I'm going to move on or whatever. There's loads of things that get forgotten in the pursuit of people's narratives where they're looking for easy answers and common denominators that are really too simplistic for complex analysis, of which football success is a very, very multifaceted conversation. There's so many variables and influences that affect your ability and your probability of finding success. And so many of them sit outside of the control of the football club and the football club's owners. And for me, as I've said all week, and I continue to say it, I think that there is nowhere near enough accountability by the fans of Tottenham or the fans of the other 15 clubs traditionally in the Premier League and the other 900 clubs or whatever it is up and down the country as to what really is the lowest hanging fruit and the common denominator of why there is all of that trophy. 90% of trophies that have been won, that could have been won by Tottenham in the domestic competition since Daniel Levy's been here, have gone in 5 directions. Right, so where's Aston Villa's demands for a trophy? They had a history of winning trophies, just as big as Tottenham's. Everton, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Derby. You go back. I've got all the data. I can bring it up on a future show if you want, Ricky. I've done all the spreadsheets. I've got all of them there to show exactly what the common denominators and the themes around the distribution of success over the last 75 years and the last 50 years and the last 25 years. And the common theme is that the distribution of how many clubs win gets fewer and fewer over time as more and more clubs have access to resources that are unreasonable. Roman Abramovich changed the course of direction, the course of travel, fundamentally when he got in and had a different relationship with money than other owners in the Premier League who traditionally saw it as a business who need to get to the bottom line. He came in without any rules to stop him and set in motion a direction of travel that to this day is still wide open because the rules that have been made by the Premier League officials are not worth the paper they're written on. There is wiggle room, and the smartest minds in the room of any of these clubs, especially at Chelsea with Todd Bowley as the beneficiary of all of what happened with the Abramovich takeover, the sale there, the forced sale, the £1.5 billion of debt that was written off, that would never be allowed to happen in any other walk of footballing life outside of that Ukraine war. All of those things are unique nuances that get overlooked. And if you look into that 90% of all of the trophies that have been won in the last 25 years, in the last 15 years or the last 10 years, 75% of them have gone to 2 teams, City and Chelsea. And the common denominator there, not that I think you should use them, but it's money and it's a different relationship with the likes of the Sheikhs. They had the opportunity to set up a multi-club ownership and reap all of the benefits of that. And these guys are still waiting for their day in court 10 years after the initial breaches were found to be happening. Like it's a madness that the buck stops at the top is only an insular investigation by Tottenham fans who don't fully understand even what it is that Daniel Levy and his group, his cohort, what their roles and responsibilities are. I think that the number one overarching responsibility of a chairman is to make, like you said, Ricky, they are a custodian, a temporary custodian of our football club. And so if we are expecting a new owner to come in and do magical things that can suddenly escalate and elevate our chances of success, I would love to hear what it is that people expect specifically in that regard. Because with regards infrastructure spend, all of the things that can be utilized, all of the stuff that maybe is still available to Newcastle's owners, all of that stuff is gone. Does Daniel Levy get any credit at all for the fact that he is the only chairman who diversifies the responsibility for revenue streams to come from people outside of the fan base? So much of our money that we generate comes from people that are fans of Beyonce or fans of go-karting or fans of NFL. All of that stuff doesn't happen anywhere else. Every other club that generates the revenue for their transfers, for their business, comes from within the fan base. And Daniel Levy has gone about seeking pathways to take that responsibility away from the fans. And unfortunately, the gap between where we are and where everybody else is and those top 5 teams is vast because of a previously set of rules that didn't have the teeth that they were supposed to have. I think that there's not enough credibility given to the outside factors and not enough understanding or analysis of what really is going on. Sorry, Johnny, last thing I'll say. Yeah. That said, do I also think that maybe after 25 years, how much further can Daniel Levy take us? I'm all for seeing a new set of eyes, a new set of fingerprints over the decision making. I'm all for it, as long as someone can show me who that guy is and what that guy is going to bring to the table that is fundamentally different. And if it includes things like spending the money that this club doesn't generate in advance of, like in the case of Todd Boehly, £1 billion in 3 years, if that's going to jeopardize the future ongoing sustainability of our football club, then I'm not for it. If it's done in a way that where you can get around certain laws and it's not a problem, fine. Let's see. Let's roll the dice. But for people to assume that new ownership equals better ownership, that's a massive leap. And I don't necessarily concur that that's always the case. There's plenty of examples of bad mistakes.
Sean, Todd Boehly offset the £1.5 billion he spent against the debt set by Abramovich, which he wrote off, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just to let you know, Alan Sugar was hounded out the club, just for a little bit of context.
Actually, well, I got told this earlier as well. There were people that were outside his house that were protesting, and that's what he claims was the catalyst.
Well,
in reality, Johnny, just quickly, my dad was the stockbroker who organised Terry Venable's sale of shares, and Alan Sugar phoned up my dad or his company at the time and was absolutely furious that Alan Sugar wasn't given the first right of refusal on the shares that Terry Venables sold to JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs that eventually got into the hands of Daniel Levy. So the idea that the fans were directly responsible is not strictly true. Alan Sugar wanted to buy more shares and wasn't allowed to.
Listen, Sean, right? Yeah. The pressure of being camped outside probably didn't help. I'm just saying, for context, when we say it hasn't ever happened. Look,
are we invoking that? Is that what we're saying here? But we should be getting people to hang around outside.
I would just say, guys, just to come in on this, and I need to bring Ash in as well because we've got a lot to get through. Is I think just to come back on this point is that Daniel Levy told us that the stadium would be a game changer.
It has been.
But I think
the last 5 years, Ricky,
Sean,
the average spend was 20 million.
Surely for them, it's been a game changer in terms of what it's allowed them to do, in terms of the concerts, in terms of the boxing, in terms of the NFL. But as a fan, has it been a game changer for us in terms of...
Yes, £120 million a year in the last 5 years average spend.
I understand what you're saying in terms of the financials, but in terms of as a club that has got on-field ambition, I left White Hart Lane in a title race. I'm now in a situation where I'm in that new stadium. I'm looking at Tottenham in the bottom half of the table. I'm not saying you're wrong in terms of the finances, Sean. The only point I'm saying is that, for me personally, is that I walked away from the club leaving White Hart Lane that was being knocked down with Spurs in a title race and a squad capable of only really 2 or 3 players away from being able to fight, to not only compete in the league, but go and bloody win it. And now see Tottenham as a football club where we are 11th in the table and we're quite literally... I've got no sense of direction, no sense of control.
Hang on, can I just add one thing, Sean? Sorry, I just want to say one thing. For me, ambition is increasing your spend, not cutting your spend in your wage bill by £30 million.
We have increased our spend, Johnny.
No, hang on, Sean, hang on. We've cut our wage bill by 30 million. That's undeniable, right? That's the fact, right? So what I'm saying to you is, why did he cut the wage bill by 30 million? We know why, because he's at Rothschild's, right? And he's looking to sell a stake. And by cutting the bill by 30 million pounds, it makes the club more attractive at the price he's trying to sell. We know that, right? So I'm just saying, from the fans' point of view, when they look, I understand from a business point of view why he's done it, but from correct. But from the fans' point of view, when they look at that, they look at the fact, well, hang on a minute, how can we talk about ambition and where we want to be, where we've cut our wage bill by 30? Ambition is to increase it by 20.
Can I hang on, just so quickly.
I need to
quick,
get
10 seconds. Oh, go on,
let me bring Ash in, and then let me bring Ash in, and we'll get Shawnee. You will get your right to reply, I promise you. I'm conscious we've got a lot to get through, and we've got very little time here. Ash, just coming on this subject for me, because this conversation has sparked up, and I feel like Ash is at Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank in the middle, when there's Jamie Carragher, and there's who else? Is it Roy Keane?
We think we're on Devil's Advocate again. Hang on.
It just feels like, I mean, Romero has come out.
Madness.
I mean, essentially, Ash, let's bring you in. Look, Romero has personally this week come out and criticised the board for their lack of investment. And he has personally said on this point that Man City competes every year. You see Liverpool strengthen its squad. Chelsea strengthens their squad, doesn't do well, so strengthens again. And now they're seeing the results. Those are the things to intimate. He gave to a Spanish broadcaster, Telemundo Deportes, live on TV. He says, you have to realise that something is going very wrong. Hopefully the Spurs hierarchy realise that. The last few years, it's always the same. First the players, then the coaching staff, and it's always the same people responsible. Hopefully they realise who the true responsible ones are, and we move forward, because it's a beautiful club. With the structure it has, it could easily be competing for the title every year. Now, the thing I will just take umbrage with on that, if you don't mind, and I agree with what Romero is saying there. The only reason Romero is saying this, and look, you can come back to me if I'm wrong in 12 months' time, it's because Cristian Romero is leaving this football club, and he will not be a Spurs player, in my opinion, in the next 12 months. And he just gave a dig, which, to be fair, I've got no problem with a dig. I actually quite like the fact that he has publicly, as a player, as a vice captain of this football club, I've got absolutely no issue. I'm quite happy that he's come out and delivered that message about our ownership. What's your takeaway, Ash, about that message? And I promise, Shawnee, we're going to come round to you to finish this point. I promise you, Shawnee's going to get that right to reply at the end. We'll come to you, Ash.
20 years, the club, they win nothing. Why? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, look, me personally, I understand when people say Levy out, there's like an emotion attached to it. And so people are like, Levy out, or some people are like Levy in, and there's an emotional attachment to that. And so people are like, Levy in. Me personally, I agree with Sean when he said, you know, Levy did his thing for a little piece. It's just time to maybe move on a little piece, put some fresh eyes on it, and maybe we move in a different direction. And for me, like, the argument I would say is, just because I'm with a gal, yeah, she's my girlfriend, right? I'm with my girlfriend and we've broken up. She's my ex.
Where's this bloody show going?
Do I need to know what my future missus needs to look like? I just know that girl is toxic. I need to get out of that relationship. You know what I'm trying to say? We might have had a kid together. I'm just saying, look, we might have had a kid together. We might have built a home together. And that home's very nice. I still live in that home. But now I'm looking for a new missus. Do I know what that new missus looks like? I just know what I didn't like. Do you know what I mean? For me personally, I can only talk for me personally. I know people I know, but just breathe for me. What's up? And like, I got frustrated with Levy. This is only my personal thing. I got frustrated back in the day when we were going for certain players and it was dragging out. I'm like, why is it dragging out so long to buy a certain player? Why have our other teams leapfrogging us, getting the players that we were linked with, and then they're buying that player, and we're still on that same one player? And then obviously we buy that one player now, and then obviously it's a celebration. Yeah, we've got that one player. But I'm like, bro, we missed out on those other targets because we're just dragging it out. Like, and that was, for me, was a frustration. I'm not saying for other Spurs fans. That was one thing I noticed on. And the wages thing is nothing new. It's not all of a sudden we've been cutting wages. We've missed out to players for wages from back in the day. Do you know what I'm saying? So like I've come on there before, Ricky, and I said Damien Duff. I brought up Damien Duff. I said Damien Duff. Only we could have got Damien Duff, but he went to more wages to Newcastle because Newcastle were offering to cough up a bit more coppers in it. So it's things like that which is kind of throw me off the chairman a little piece, like thinking, oh man, why is it always? Then I was told, like, oh, boom, we're getting Paratici, yeah, the new Don. We're going to be moving a bit quicker in the transfer window. We're going to be doing things different, and Levy's going to step away from the football business because he is a good businessman. Let's not get it twisted. He's a good off the football. He knows what he's doing. Let's give him that, right? So I'm thinking, right, boom, it's just going to be Paratici pulling the strings. All of a sudden, I'm hearing, right, you know, Levy's involved in this deal, Levy's in that. I said, why is he involved again? I thought he wasn't going to be touching the football side of things. I thought he was leaving it to the experts. But I just feel like he's always got his hands all over the football things. You know, it doesn't go nothing goes over until what he says, like, yeah, this is my money on my say, then I'm going. And then also, again, when Munn was put in, I remember I was asked, oh, do you reckon Scott Munn is gonna change things? Because Scott Munn's is being brought in to separate Levy, to push him away so he can concentrate on the corporate stuff. And then Scott Munn's going to do the financial. I ain't still all that now. I ain't heard from Scott Munn, you know. But like, yeah, Scott Munn was going to concentrate on the footballing side. And then between Lange and obviously Ange, they're going to continue with the, you know, process on acquiring the right players for the right club, for our club, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, long story. I'm saying, right, okay, hold on a second. How come Levy's getting involved again? I thought he wasn't meant to be involved again. And then I keep hearing his name pop up when it comes to like transfers in terms of like dealing with, you know, who comes in, who comes out. And I feel like I keep getting sold a lie or a mistruth, if that makes sense. And so that's where my trust issues start to happen with Levy, because I don't know if I can take what he's saying on face value, because a lot of time we didn't hear anything from Levy. Remember, Levy was he was ghost. We didn't hear anything. Only since Ange has come in, we started to hear from him. Do you know what I'm saying? And then even then, when he's starting to say things, I'm like, do I actually believe him? He's answering like a politician. He's not really answering the questions. So then that furthers in my distrust of the chairman. And I think, this is my opinion, I think other fans feel like that with him as well. They just don't trust the brother. Do you know what I'm saying? Even if he does come out. Go on, sorry.
It's really hard, Ash, to trust somebody that, and I'll let you come back on this point, and we are going to get to Sean. We've got so much to talk about. Please don't think we're moving on for the sake of moving on. We've got so much to cover on this show. It's meant to be the bloody Rangers preview. We're 53 minutes in here. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's my fault because I bloody started it. But, I mean, I think the point is, Ash, and you understand as well, that when you've been sold so many false promises down the years, and we're going to come on to Sean's point in a second, you know, in relation to the fact that when I mentioned that term, game-changing stadium, to me, I didn't think about it at the point of that we're going to have Formula One, we're going to have NFL, we're going to have, you know, all the go-karting going on. I thought it meant that we're actually going to go there and we're going to compete for the best players. We're going to compete for the big trophies. We're going to compete and be a team that left White Hart Lane, as I said, in a title race, and it will always be White Hart Lane, but we moved into the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as a club that just got into a Champions League final, that as a club we knew needed a rebuild, and quite frankly, I think we took our eye off the ball. I just don't think, you know, the focus has been on football. And I just feel that has really been the case, ultimately, I'd say, since 2019, 2020. You know, we brought in, with all due respect, win-now managers in Antonio Conte and, of course, Jose Mourinho, and did not give them the tools to win now. So, in my opinion, it was two absolute failed managers. Why bring those guys in and then not give them the tools to do the job? It just made absolute zero sense. Is there anything more you want to say, Ash, before I go over to Shawnee to close on this?
No, I'll go give it to Sean. Go on. Oh, actually, you know what? I thought at one point, sorry, this is the last bit, like, because obviously,
stay on, we'll do the Saints preview at this rate.
It's very emotive. It's very emotive, and I can see that. And I'll choose my words carefully. But I honestly felt, as a fan, at one point, we was ahead of Liverpool. In my humble opinion, there was one point where we were.
Ash, we was ahead of Arsenal. We was ahead of Arsenal.
I know
and
that.
Liverpool.
I know, bro. That's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
know. We were ahead of. I'm talking about before we were ahead of Arsenal. We were actually ahead of Liverpool. Do you remember that period? We were actually ahead of
we
Liverpool
was in
before.
we was in a title race.
4-1 at Wembley.
We were 2 to 3 players away from, as a football club, being in a situation where we genuinely were competing for a league, and we took our eye off the ball.
That's what rattles me, Rick. That's what I'm saying.
Simple as that.
Rattles me to see that Liverpool went above us, and then afterwards Arsenal
Yep.
went above us again. I'm waiting for the next team, like Chelsea, are coming back around to go above us again. I don't know. Maybe Aston Villa, will they go above us? Do you know?
Chelsea have lost their owner, right? They flunked the mid-table. They have then, since that point, then gone back above us, and nothing has changed. It's unbelievable.
Nothing has changed. What do you mean nothing? They spent £1.5 billion in 2 years.
I understand that
they need to be there. Anything other than a title challenge is outrageous failure on behalf of Chelsea.
Surely,
it's outrageous. They have to be there. It's not the same story.
We have
it's
spent
not a fair comparison.
I want to let you come in this point, Sean, because I want to give you the opportunity to come back on this point. We have spent money. I've not at any point said we have not spent money under ENIC. The problem that I've had is that the money being spent, in my opinion, has not been of the caliber of players needed to really push this club forward. And I think, again, I want to give you the opportunity, Sean, close it for me on this point. Take away what you want to say as a right of reply with regards to that first point that you brought up, please.
Right, so just very quickly, the 5 years before we left the stadium, we had a net spend of £20 million average per year. The 5 years moving into the new stadium, a net spend of £120 million, £110 million per year on average. The idea that it hasn't been a game changer financially or in terms of providing the resources in which to do business is a fallacy. It's absolute nonsense. 4.5 times increase, explosion year over year in that 5 year versus 5 year comparable period. Like when Daniel Levy said it's going to be a game changer, it's a financial behemoth, all that stuff. That doesn't mean the game changer is your guaranteed success. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed you're going to win trophies. It means that we're going to be put ourselves into a conversation where we're more likely to be able to compete with the teams who I aforementioned have either always been more successful than Tottenham or who got advantages that other teams don't have anymore because the rules were closed after the door was closed after the horse bolted. The only other thing that happened in that same period is a massive inflation in the price of an average player. £40 million 10 years ago would get you a top 20 player in the world. These days, it gets you like an 18-year-old that hasn't kicked a Premier League minute of football in his life. There is other variables at play here that do not come, and the responsibility of which do not land at the feet of Daniel Levy. By the way, for what it's worth, I know that I take the unpopular side of an argument when the argument is emotional in its basic and its structure, but the facts don't care about your feelings. And if no one is going to say the actual other side of the argument, then you're just going to have an echo chamber. I'm happy to play the bad guy. Doesn't bother me, but I think it's like incumbent upon like, us as a community, as a panel, whatever, to sort of represent both sides of the argument so that smart, intelligent people can land where they want to. And I don't think that it's represented quite what the nuances of the circumstance and the situation are. As I said earlier, I don't think there's any attention paid to what happens outside of the football club. If it's just Daniel Levy's fault, then explain to me why it is that all the trophies don't go to any of the other teams that we're competing with. Where's Chelsea? Where's Aston Villa's success? Where's Newcastle? Where's Everton? Where's Palace? Where's Nottingham Forest? Where are all the teams that used to win things like Tottenham used to? Where is their resurgence to success? It hasn't happened. What has happened is Daniel Levy, if the buck stops at the top for all of our footballing failures, then so does the credit of who got us in that place where we are capable of having the audacity of discussing why it is that we can't have a title race.
Surely,
when did Tottenham ever win a title before?
Surely,
1960.
Can I say one thing? You can come back on this point. Do you not think, though, to be assured that, this is I'm only telling you the words that Daniel Levy told us, right? It's the only words that Daniel Levy told us, and you feel free to come back on this. Daniel Levy told us that, I believe it was said and this is maybe me and you might disagree on this, that in footballing terms, purely footballing terms, removing financials from a second, just purely on footballing terms, that Spurs moving into that new stadium would allow us to compete on field and be able to challenge for trophies and to be able to attract the best capable player. My argument is just on that point, is that I don't think during the period in which we've moved into the stadium, that we have gone after, in my opinion, the best possible caliber players to take Tottenham to a place where they can compete and they can win. And that is my frustration.
Right.
If I'm going to be honest with you, Shawnee, I've got no problem at all with them, having the concerts with the NFL, with the boxing, with the go-karting. I've got no problem at all with that. As long as, for me, the same ambition was being shown on the pitch in regards to the players they're being signed, and that is where I've got that frustration.
But that's fine, and I'm frustrated, by the way, as well. People, I'm not sitting here pretending like I'm okay with where we're at. I think I completely acknowledge that the last 5 years have been a dilution, right? And there's other teams that are coming up and being participants in the conversation. Totally get it, totally hear it. For what it's worth, though, you have to, again, bake in the reality and the context of what the circumstances were as we've gone through that transition. Lots of things were changing within Tottenham Hotspur. We had a whole load of deadwood we had to get through. This painful rebuild that's taken 15 years. It's only now getting to the point where you've got through most of that. And hopefully some of these young talent that we paid through the nose for are going to mature into the sorts of players and the caliber that you hope. But when it comes to the argument, oh, where's our £100 million player? Where's our Declan Rice? It's very difficult to spend £100 million on a player when you look at the squad cost ratios, the rules, which I don't think many people understand, what you can actually spend. In terms of wage structure, Johnny, I said to you before about this, it's the wrong way to look at cost. Let me finish, John. 1 second, mate. 1 second. It's the wrong way to look at squad cost ratios is to identify just the wage bill. You have to factor in agents' fees, amortization, net spend, all these. There's a whole different caliber of categorization.
You're limited to how much.
If Tottenham, hang on, John, let me finish the sentence, mate, and then I'll hand over. For me, if you look at Tottenham and go, "Where's our £100 million player?" How can you do that when you only have £120 million to spend, despite all of the revenue generation? If you've got 15 players in your squad that you have to turn over in the last 18 months, you can't do everything all at once unless you want to jeopardize the sustainability of the club and do what Todd Boehly did, who we couldn't do anyway because we're not the beneficiary of a $1.5 billion write-down like Chelsea were. There's circumstances which people overlook all the time. That's all I'm saying.
That's fine. I mean, all I would say on this point, the club, and we'll go to Ash as well, the club did decide to give, with no due respect, after watching him on loan with Timo Werner, the club then decided again to once again re-loan Timo Werner, who, as we know, is on an astronomical higher wage. So, Sean, I totally understand the point you're making there from a financial perspective. I just feel, for me, the decision-making, when it comes to the crucial decisions being made at this football club, for me, has been off for quite a sustainable amount of time. I think when it comes to financials, can I be honest with you, Shawnee, I can't fault them financially. I just wish, for me, as I go back to the point that, for me, I just wish the same due diligence in terms of the finances that is being done off the pitch when it comes to what the decisions they've taken is done on it. That's just where my frustration is for me. I've watched this club get to a Champions League final. I've watched this club get into a title race, and I'm now watching this club declining. I just feel, for me, I'm at a point where, and I've said this before, I just feel like we're in a Mike Ashley hamster wheel where I've not said this before on here, that I think the board are happy enough to top up the money for the club to potentially secure a top 4 spot. But I think they're at a point now where they're no longer willing, as Daniel Levy has said 100%. In the fan forum himself. Daniel Levy has said this in his fan forum himself, that he needs investment now. So the reality is that those that are expecting huge amount of money in January to be spent, I just can't see it. I can't see it under Ange Postecogou.
Of course not.
I certainly can't see it under the manager.
Well, Joe Lewis,
it can't happen. We haven't got the wiggle room that everyone thinks we have. People still route well off this £500 million net spend gap. It's not true. Look at the numbers and you'll see what the truth is. We don't create the money to spend 300 million. No one does. Nobody does.
You don't think even, Shawnee, with PSR in there in terms of the money that we know the club are on the right side of PSR, you don't think the club have got the ability to go out and spend a sizable amount if they want to? You don't believe that, Shawnee, based on the
check finances? The record. I have got the budgets right for every single window within £5 million since I started doing YouTube. If you go and look at the numbers and you understand what isn't possible, you can see what isn't going to happen. And Daniel Levy spends what we can. There is the room to spend more if you want to kick the can. But if you get that wrong, then in the future 2 years or 1 year or 3 years, whatever, you can't then do it again. It doesn't work the way people think that they can, where there's a lack of ambition and we could be spending £500 million next month. Doesn't work. It's not how it works. It's just not how it works.
I personally don't think it's the actual money that we're spending. I think it's on the quality of player.
The caliber.
It's the caliber. Yeah. And I think that's where the wages kind of argument was coming in, because we could afford certain players, but we refused to because of a certain wage bracket. And that's what my thing was back in the day with Damien Duff. I was like, I reckon he could do us damage in that position.
Ash, we can go all the way back. We can go all the way back. We can go to Moutinho. We can go to so many players that this club should have brought in and didn't bring in. You know, Hazard, for example.
Like it's always that, and there's always an excuse. And I'm like, do I believe it or do I not? Yeah. And then that's where my distrust happens, because it keeps happening over a series of seasons. And I'm like, if only we could have got that. And I feel like that's why we're always the bridesmaids. And out of the top 6, like I compare myself against the top 6, not like your Leicesters, not your Portsmouths, not your Nottingham Forest, Everton. Do you know what I mean? Some of those clubs have been successful relatively. Yes, you're right. You're correct.
Look, can I be honest here? But I just think on this point, and we do need to move on. That had the club, Shawnee, going back to this point here, and Shawnee, if there's anything more you want to add on this, please let me know. Because
I'd like to add something myself. To be honest with you, like
I'm done. Yeah, I'm fine. I've said my piece.
I mean, look, the thing is here, right? What Sean has a lot of what Sean says is right. But also, if a new owner does come in, because Levy has been prudent over so many years, you know, with his spend, he's not going to the max. He's not spent to the max, has he, Sean? You know, he hasn't spent to the max.
No, but again, it's a myth around what is available to spend. This wiggle room thing that people are still reeling off some story from 18 months ago. It's not true anymore. It's not true.
Look, I understand that, Sean, but listen, a new owner comes in, he only gets an extra £30 million wiggle room, right?
And what's that buy you? That buys you less than Archie Gray, right?
It doesn't buy you anything, but he has got some wiggle room through the prudency of what he's been doing over. Look, the joke of it is here, right? Sean actually hates Daniel Levy, right? And he's been sending him anonymous emails, right, for months now. It's the greatest cover, Sean. I take my hat off to you. It's unbelievable, right? Incredible acting performance. But no, look, we can go on about this.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, there's a Rangers game on Thursday.
Yeah, we do need to move on. We do need to move on. Look, I'm really conscious, like I say, that has completely derailed us. So I will take full responsibility for that. I think it's really important when you go into a debate like that. I don't want anybody to feel they've not had a chance to have their say. I'm conscious that out of all that debate, Johnny got the least amount of traction. Johnny put the most amount to say. So, John, I'm so sorry. But John is in Rangers on Thursday. So we are going to come on to, I would say, Johnny for that big Rangers preview. Before we do, there is a situation around the manager right now, which is completely forgotten. I am very conscious. Ash has got we've got a manager still. We have got a manager. Ash has got a show very, very soon. I'm very conscious of that. So what we are going to do... It's on now. I'm so sorry, Ash. Look, we're going to very quickly see where everybody is on the Ange Postecoglu debate. And then we are going to look ahead to Rangers to come on Thursday in this big match preview. God, never seen a show like this in my life. Please accept my responsibility for this. But really important to say, as things stand, Ange does have the backing of the Spurs hierarchy. And that was reported by a friend of the show, Bridgie. Let's hear from Bridgie. And we'll come back to you after this, where we're going to take a quick minute to recast ourselves through makeup. We'll be back.
Is Ange really under pressure, do we think?
All I can tell you is that Ange Postecoglu is currently under no pressure at Tottenham Hotspur. He enjoys a good working relationship with Daniel Levy. Now, there'll be Spurs fans and non-Spurs fans shouting at me on the TV now saying, we've heard this all before at Spurs. It's a bit different this time, though. There's an acknowledgement that there's been a number of serious injuries this season that have derailed Spurs a bit, and that this, I hate the word project, but it's going to take some time. And Ange Postecoglu says it to me every Friday, or to one of our colleagues every Friday. This is going to take some time. I think Ange Postecoglu deserves great credit for getting Spurs 5th in his first season without Harry Kane. Harry Kane bailed out so many managers in some really dire performances in years gone by, and Harry Kane would just shoot for 20th to get into the January market. I would say yes, and the discussions...
Is there money? They got money?
Yeah, I think that, there is money. They're a well-run club. I mean, let's face it, that stadium doesn't just hold football matches anymore. You know, people say, "Oh, I liked your seat." Oh, what game did you watch? I went, no, I saw Beyonce. You know, it's Daniel Levy commercial-wise, he's very good, he's very savvy, and so it'd be interesting to see over the next few weeks. However, look, it's Rangers Thursday. He's going to get a really warm welcome from the Rangers supporters, the ex-Celtic manager. And then it's Southampton on Sunday, and Spurs have struggled with that Thursday-Sunday change. And we know how big a result Southampton need. And maybe you look at Russell Martin and Ange Postecoglu, you see similarities in terms of, It's my approach, and I'm not going to change that approach. So, an interesting few weeks.
There you go, an interesting few weeks ahead. I thought the show's been going on for a few weeks the way this show's bloody been going. Please accept my apologies. I'm joined by the wonderful Ashmatic at Spurs Kings TV. We're late for his own bloody show. Ash, I'm so sorry. We're going to let you go very, very soon. We're joined by the wonderful Sean Butler on, like I say, the Spurs Talk Show. Get ready. I've got Shawnee to come on here, and I'm absolutely loving having Sean on this show. Shawnee, thank you so much. And do you know what I do love, very quickly, I want to say this, that Last Word on Spurs is a platform for everybody to have their say, right? And I've always made this point that the whole point of Last Word on Spurs is that, for me, people should be allowed to come on here, say what they say, not feel shouted down, be able to get their point out expressively, and not feel like in any way they're being controlled or being told what they can and can't say. I mean, that's why Jonny comes on here, because bloody couldn't control a word he bloody says. Everything, I couldn't even get in the bloody conversation. So please accept my apologies. Jonny, thank you so much as well. The wonderful Jonny Hamme back on the show. Right, we are going to bring where we are at the moment under Ange Postecogou, and then we are going to build into Rangers as well. Huge game for Tottenham. Jonny is there for us in Scotland. We've got our resident expert over there on the Scottish Watch himself. And look, we know the pressure has intensified under Ange Postecoglu in these last few weeks, it's fair to say, even more so. Spurs, although they are the second top scorers in the Premier League, and while only 4 sides have conceded fewer goals, they do lie 11th in the Premier League table. And as we know, we are widely considered to be open and defensively very vulnerable. Spurs have scored 16 goals against some of the big boys in Chelsea, City, United and Villa. Yet, as we know, we've struggled to score past Ipswich, Palace, Leicester, Fulham and Bournemouth. You know, put it into context about Spurs' overall stats at the moment that don't make pretty reading. But again, for fair balance, I will share them with you. Spurs haven't started a Premier League season worse than this since 2008. They have just 1 win of their last 7 games across all competitions, resulting for many suggesting there should be a change in the dugout. And it's also important to bring into the fact that Postecoglou has been in charge of Spurs since the summer of 2023. And when you look at the case of the fact he guided us to a fifth place finish last term, and you look at the case over the last period of games that we've had, 19 defeats in 40, 12 defeats in 22, 19 defeats overall in the last 12 months, 1 clean sheet in 22 Premier League games at home, 1 point after the first 5 Europa League games. I will bring in some more of these that don't make pretty reading, but there is a lot of pressure on the manager right now. I think there's an admittance from really across the board, not just on here, but in general, that it's not all Ange Postecoglou's fault. But this man is in need of results quick and fast to change the mood around the camp. And I'll talk about the camp being, of course, the fan base, because it does appear the outsider telling us that he maintains the backing of Daniel Levy. The players really enjoy working with Ange Postecoglu. They're enjoying the training. Normally at this time when there's pressure around a manager and there's disharmony around a manager, it's normally this time that you get certain stories coming out saying how much players aren't enjoying training. We're not getting that at the moment. So we've got to bring Rangers in as well to this conversation. Before we do, very quick round the table on this. I don't know why I'm saying round the table with these 3 talkers. What am I getting myself into? I must be fucking crazy. We'll go to Jonny to start with. Jonny, you've not hid your frustration towards the manager. Just very quickly, where are you on him for you? Because I know for that Chelsea game, that was very hard to stomach. To go 2-0 up again, similar to Brighton, and throw away the game in the manner we did. Where are you on the manager very quickly before we look to Rangers?
I think you just got to give him for the next 4 games and see where we are. I think he's massively struggling, but even I can see, unless you can guarantee me one of 2 or 3 managers are going to come in, what are you going to do? I don't want Ryan Mason back, so let's roll with him for the next 3 or 4. But if he doesn't turn it around, I'm afraid he's got to roll. And I'll book him an Uber. Maybe it's a bit too far. I'm not going to pay for an Uber fare back to Oz. So no, I hope he turns it round. I've always hoped he turned it round. He was never ever my first choice, but I've accepted him. Daniel Levy went cheap. He went cheap. There was top managers out there. He went for Ange, right? And we are now paying the price. That's my feeling. Hope he turns it round. I don't think he will.
Jonny, thank you so much. We're going to come back round to you for that. Do you want to go back in there, John? Do you want to say anything else there?
No. Go on, Ash.
Ash, we'll come around to Ash. Look, Ash, let's be honest about it. 4 away wins in 12 months, 9 home defeats in 12 months, 41% win ratio since Chelsea last November. That inside 45 league games, 7 defeats in 15 league games. Only the bottom 3 do have more. And to be honest, like I say, we have to bring that into play. 2 points from the likes of Ipswich, Leicester, Fulham, Brighton, Bournemouth and Palace have really intensified the pressure under Ange Postecoglu. Where are you quickly on him before I say we look ahead to Rangers and what that fixture may bring for him?
You know what? I'm like most fans. I'm all over the shop. I feel like a fraud right now.
This bloody show.
By saying, bro, I feel like Ange, but I don't know. Like, I just want to see a project out, if I'm being totally honest. And I've always said that. I said, no matter how bad it gets in the league, I want to see the project out. And people say I've got low standards because of it. Do I think Ange will succeed? I'm not too sure. Tactically, on the ball, I don't mind it. Off the ball, that's where I have my questions. I think that's where we're lacking. I think he's gone different places, had different coaches. I don't know if that model works, if I'm being totally honest. He's brought a coaching staff in that's very, very young. And so I'm looking at it. Maybe you need a bit more experienced coaches to kind of challenge you, in my opinion. I've got so many questions, bro. I'll be honest with you. I don't know where I'm at. Am I sitting on the fence to say that? Am I being a fraud for saying that?
I think a lot of
you got splinters, man. Ash, you got splinters.
That's how I feel. I feel like that. That's how I feel like a flip flop. I feel like all of the terms that people throw at people for being in that kind of middle ground. And like I just every time I'm like, if Levy sacks him, am I like has Levy won? If he sacks him, like, or if Levy sacks him, am I like, actually, no, Levy is the problem. So that's why my head's kind of rattled at the moment, if that makes sense. Yep. I look at it both ways. Sense.
Yeah. But do you think, Ash, the key question is, we go to Shawnee, do you think, Ash, with more money being spent on better caliber players, will Tottenham improve under Ange? That is the question. What do you think?
Well, this is when I kind of signed out. I signed out because remember, I was on your show in the summer, and all I was like, Eze, Eze. And I'm not saying Eze would have been like the player that changed our fortune. But in my opinion, like that was the caliber or the quality of player that I wanted to kind of get to the next level in terms of what direction I wanted the club to move in. And I said, like, all right, cool. We're not going to go for Eze because the wage thing, blah, blah, blah. Surely we go for Neto because I said Solanke by himself, he needs supply. He's like having a gun with no bullets. You know what I'm trying to say? So I'm looking at him and I'm like, all right, we must go for that level, that quality of player. And then when that never happened, that's when I kind of like, all right, cool. I don't see this quite working out because we only brought in one player from that starting 11 that we kind of suffered in the back end of the season where I know it was a mad run of games. I know it was a mad, like we played the top 6 for our last 8 games or something crazy like that. I know it was that, but still, we needed to improve, and it was clearly evident that for an attacking manager or a possession-based manager, if you want to keep hold of the ball, because that's what possession is, you're going to need a higher technical base. And if you want an attacking manager, then you're going to need players that can either create or put in the back of the net. And I looked at that front three, and I wasn't confident. So that's where I was like, you know what? I'm not really going to believe in this project, if I'm being totally honest. And as games have gone on, I'm seeing that defensive side of Ange isn't quite what I thought where it needs to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Listen, absolutely. Listen, totally understand that. I mean, like I say, I think what we do find ourselves on is a point where surely the fan base is split. You know, I think it is, like I say, tricky right now. You know, you look at the fact that at the moment in December, 1 point from 9, it's a worse win ratio than Nuno, than AVB, than Sherwood. You know, 12 defeats in the last 22. I think Johnny shared this on the last show we had, or the previous one to that. I think we've now faced 129 shots in the 7 games we've had. That's 18 per game. You do worry how sustainable this is. I mean, again, there is that argument out there that, you know, the average tenure of a Spurs head coach is around 18 months. It's only a bit higher because Maurizio Pochettino was given a 5.5-year contract at the football club. So it's little no wonder why really that nobody's ever really able to build something sustainable. And I think as a fan base, we've got so used to chopping and changing that patient wears thinner than maybe at any football club. So it does feel like we're at a point now where, you know, fans will have a feeling with regards to where they are with the manager. And I must make this point that those out there as well. Everybody's absolutely entitled to their own opinion, but it does feel amongst some of the fan base that Ange Postecoglu is like the final boss. And like if we sack Ange, then what are we going to do? Because there's nobody else out there. What I will qualify, and I will back up what Jonny said there, and I'm probably in agreement with him, that I don't think it's going to get any better stacking Ange Postecoglu right now to then have Ryan Mason and Matty Wells in charge. I've got to be honest, that's just my general feeling on it. But at the same time, as a football club, we can't just keep losing game after game after game and be accepting to that. You know, we have to remember we are Tottenham Hotspur, although many would argue, what are we these days? What are our standards? I mean, Shawnee, where are you for you in terms of the manager at the moment? Because I do know it's a big debate at the moment amongst the Spurs fan base. There's a split for sure.
Yeah, look, I'm with everybody else in that I share concerns. I think there's a lot of things that are a little bit duplicitous around not just his tactics, but I think that some of the messages that come out with regard, I think you can learn a lot more about from what he really thinks and what he's really telling you from the body language than more from the words. I think talk is cheap. I think that there's a massive disconnect. You know, he said I think it was the summer before, he said, you know, the gap between the best or the very best and the level below it is not really technical. It's mentality. And he prioritizes people that have a strong resilience, a mental aptitude, a ability to adapt, to handle pressure, to go again, to rise up, all those things that are very important. And I completely agree and concur that is mentality is the biggest gap in Tottenham. Why is it that we can beat the best and lose to the worst? It's a strange enigma that didn't start with Ange Postecoglou's tenure. But if he's okay, if that's what he thinks, then why is he on board with a transfer policy that is, you know, prioritizing 18 and 19-year-olds who, you know, like scientifically don't even have their frontal cortex developed until they're 21. And so like you can't really judge an 18-year-old on the mental resilience when they don't have any ability to have got through even the early temptations of fame and fortune. We've seen enough players over the years that had a lot of talent, but then fell off when it got, you know, too much too soon. So there's a disconnect there with why he's okay in supporting a transfer policy that doesn't really marry up to what his standards are with regards the mentality side. Tactically, obviously, I think there's massive question marks around, you know, why is it that he's so certain that, you know, the one way of playing football is going to work? You know, for me, it might have worked at every level he's been at before, but let's be honest, you know, Celtic, it's not exactly difficult to win the league up there. You don't have to be a genius tactically to be able to outperform St. Mirren and, you know, Hearts, everything, all these teams every week. And maybe in Australia and Japan, no disrespect, I don't know their level of football, but I would imagine that there's not the same resources or attention that goes towards the ability for other teams to figure out how to play against you. At this level, people are looking for margins. People are looking for percentage points around how to identify weaknesses, because it does come down to tiny differences between success and failure. And if he's not going to embrace that stuff, I don't really see, you know, a good outcome. That said, I think the idea of sacking him right now, when we are still 100% in all of the competitions that we had any chance of winning this year, and when you look at, we're in the quarterfinals against United, a fairly decent draw, depending on how you see it. Like, I think that you can't. I'll tell you
next week, surely it was a good draw.
Well, exactly, and that's fine, right? But I think you have to give him the rope to figure it out and see where we go. Because if he does win a trophy this year, it's the best return that any Tottenham manager has done since Ramos. And if he does it in a competition outside of the Carabao Cup, then it's the best return inside of it's like Daniel Levy's era, right? And so you have to give him that opportunity. But, you know, but he has to figure it out, right? He has to realize that the stubborn approach at this level, I don't think is going to work. The one way of football thing, there's a reason why no other manager in world football at this level has one way of playing. And not every manager who does do pragmatic stuff wants to play that way, you know, inherently. They'd all rather play attractive, beautiful football, but they all recognize that they all don't have the squad to be able to do that. Very few teams do. So there's a disconnect. I'm with Ash in terms of like, how do you feel about it? I think that unfortunately I land on the place where I don't think it's going to work out. I've said 1,000 times that this setup, this rebuild, this project, this shift in pendulum towards a new direction, it doesn't suit the guy after Conte. It suits the guy after Conte. So I think that whoever's next will inherit a better opportunity than Ange will. But I'm not ready for the next guy yet. I think you have to let him play this season out, or at least get to the point where we know that we're out of the competitions that we had a chance to win. And if that falls apart over the next 2 months, then maybe you can have a look. The last thing I'll say is, as you said, Ricky, where do you go next? The managerial market really isn't that appetizing for me. I mentioned to Jonny the other day, the only candidate that I would look at right now that I'd love to see in the Premier League, if not at Tottenham anywhere, would be Gasperini at Atalanta. But he's 68 years old. He's got a good thing there. He's not going to come over and.
I just worry we'll kill him. I mean,
possibly. But the last thing I'll say, right, the last word I'll say is we have to remember when we're analysing Ange that he is not responsible for all of the things that happened as a fan base to us, all of our disappointments over the last 25 years. He's only responsible for the last 18 months. And I think that sometimes there's a conflation of frustrations that gets landed at his feet, which is really frustrations at the club, at Daniel Levy, at other things. And I think you have to try to separate the two and hold him to account for his vulnerabilities and his weakness and his stubbornness. But at the same time, remember that he isn't responsible for why you're really that impatient and angry, and let him figure this out. If he does, great. If he doesn't, okay, we'll go again. But not yet for me. Let's see how we go in the cups.
Yeah, what's quite funny? What's quite funny, Ricky? You said to me a quick round the table, so I thought I had obliged to stand by the rules.
It's been about 15 minutes. I'm so sorry. Right, what we are going to do, like I say, and I will make that point again. Look, we do appreciate he has had a tough time with injuries, which has probably been again a familiar theme during his reign. But I think
stop training them so hard. Yeah, rotate, play Spence. Play Region. Come on, you know. You're going to tell me a story.
I think my only thing with Ange is, again, my concern is that with the way he wants to play football, it requires such a amount of running for the players to do, and when the players are absolutely physically knackered doing it twice a week, that's why I do have concerns as to whether this can work long term. Unless, again, you're going to buy in better players that can keep on running. And that means not just buying in more players, that means buying better caliber players than what we've got. And even there's no guarantee, but I am very conscious that we're going to take us away into another discussion point. And look, again, it's a busy show. We're going to look ahead to Rangers. We need to, like I say, look for a close on this show. We're going to hear from the Rangers review for our listeners on audio. For those that I say watching the show, guys, thank you so much as always for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. There's over 4,000 of you that are watching us live on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. So thank you so much, as always, for your incredible support for the show. I'm joined by Jonny Hamme. I'm joined by Ash over at the Spurs Kings. I'm joined also by Sean Butler from the Spurs Talk Show. And we are going to look ahead to Rangers because it is a Rangers preview. What are we doing? I don't know. I quite feel like, as I say, guys, I do feel like I'm... Forgive me for saying this. I don't mean this in a bad way. I feel quite like Ange at the moment. I've lost complete, utter control. It was like a 20-minute period during Chelsea where, honestly, it was just going absolutely, excuse my French, because after the watershed, fucking nuts. And it just feels like this show has gone in that direction. So please accept my apologies. Rangers on Thursday, huge game for the football club. A game where, if you asked us a couple of weeks ago as to where it would be in Spurs' season, many would say you might be able to go into this game with it maybe not needing to be a must-win, a must-not lose. But I feel just for Spurs' form right now, and the fact that that Europa League table is fairly condensed now in terms of our position, that Spurs are currently outside of the top 8, which, as we know, for the top 8 is, of course, automatic progression in the Europa League. It's a game probably Spurs do need to win to be in a situation where, in the back of our mind, we've got some fair reassurance if we don't screw up the last couple of games that we will automatically qualify. Jonny, you're going to be there. It is easy, which has given Ange so much success. Of course, 5 trophies from 2 seasons at Parkhead. He's going to get an interesting reception over at
listen,
definitely Ibrox. How you feeling about it?
Listen, look, I lived in Glasgow for a number of years, funny enough, and I was introduced. I got friendly with David Robertson, who played left back for Rangers, and I was very privileged that he invited me down the day that Paul Gascoigne signed, and I was in the Blue Room, and he was as mad as ever there. And I became a Rangers fan, obviously, because I couldn't get down to see Spurs all the time, watch them on the television. The atmosphere at Ibrox is like nothing else, and like the atmosphere on an Old Firm derby, you can't beat it. The history there, first Scottish team to win to get to a final, Cup Winners' Cup '61. Which they lost against Fiorentina. They won, I think it was 71-72. They beat Dynamo Moscow at the Bernabeu. And, of course, they had that incredible run to the final in 21-22. You know, when they were unbelievable. They beat Leipzig, they beat Dortmund. They got all the way to the final, and they lost. But I think, like Spurs, they've gone through a big transformation. When Clement came in, they got rid of 13 players, 10 seniors, 3 went on loan. And they've gone for the same sort of model, interestingly. Younger players, try to bring them through, to create some funds, because, you know, money's quite tight up there. But what they have done, they just started to come through the dark side of where they've been because of these players. They're unbeaten since October.
Yep.
3 clean sheets in the last 3 games, obviously. And they in Europe, I think Clement's style of football really suits European football. And, you know, you saw they're sitting just above Spurs. They beat Nice 4-1 last time away from home. Or was it at home? I can't remember. It was 4-1. I think it was away from home. I'm more than certain it was away from home. So, you know, although Spurs should be going into this game as favourites, I think that, you know, the intimidating, we talked about the intimidating atmosphere at Fenerbahce.
Yep. Galatasaray. And
Galatasaray, sorry, yeah.
Yep. No problem. Sorry. No, fine, mate. It's probably the first it's the first time I've been right about anything so far during this show. Please carry on.
Yeah, no, so, you know, that atmosphere, and we're going to ask ourselves, who's going to be playing at centre-back?
Yep.
He's going to play Archie Gray and Dragusin. I mean, you know, we could be looking at that.
And you could have a situation where Johnny's on top of that. You might end up with Matasar potentially at right back, because Porro at some point has got to have a rest.
Well,
Porro's got to be rested at some point, haven't you? Has got to rest at some point.
You think so? Listen, they got some good players. I mean, I'm sure people remember Hadji, the great Georgie Hadji. His son has come back now. He was out on loan because Bill, the previous manager, didn't really fancy him. But as he's come back, he started to do well. The interesting thing is, though, that could play in Spurs' favour is the fact that it's the Scottish Cup final on Sunday, Rangers versus Celtic, and there could be a situation here where he feels, sat where he is, that he could rest 2 or 3 players, and that could really play into our hands. You know, when they see how decimated we are with injury.
Yep.
That he might do that. Whether or not he'll drop Taverner, who's getting on, he's about 33 years of age now. I don't know. I got a feeling that they could have half an eye on the big game of the weekend, because you know, they're doing very well. They're 3 points off the top, and all is possible. For me, it's a really exciting game, because I've waited a long time for my number one team to play my surrogate. You know, Rangers.
Careful, Johnny. Careful.
No, listen. Look, it's just.
I know you're saying.
I had to watch football. I couldn't have.
And would you believe they've cut him off the feed? Oh, we've got him back. We've got him back. I thought they cut you off, Johnny, when you said that. Hey, I've got you. Carry on, please.
The
Carry on.
Celtic fans have come in and have done me. And the interesting thing is all the time that I was supporting Rangers up there, and Ange at Celtic was smashing us left, right, and centre. Not once did I ever think, God, I'd love that guy at Tottenham managing our club. Never.
Interesting.
Never.
Well, I mean, you make some points there, Johnny, on them. Like I say, they are in really good form at the moment, Rangers, to be fair to them. For Ange, I said it will be a return to obviously a place in his heart where he has a real fond memories of it. I mean, we talk about Shawnee big games and the context of the season. How big a game is Rangers in terms of, for the players as well, dealing with that atmosphere? Because to be fair to them, I mean, we do know, of course, that game against Galatasaray wasn't an easy experience. It was a fairly younger side. The reality is that Spurs maybe don't have the opportunity to be able to rotate as much as Ange might want to in this game. How important do you think, Sean, for momentum, it's important to play a fairly decent side that you feel are going to be capable of getting a result? Because I just thought going into that Southampton game, and many will remember the last time we played Southampton away, the infamous Conte rant that, you know, things well, from that moment was the end of his reign. Do you look at the game against Rangers being really pivotal for Ange now, and it's not just a case of now being in a position where he can rest players because of how important as well the game is in the context of the competition as well?
Yeah, 100%. There's no opportunity to rest the any players that are fit that we have a sort of somewhat of a fill-in for. I think that the absence of whoever's going to have to squeeze in at centre back is going to be out of a square peg in a round hole, and consequently, I think that you have to build that team in a way where you can expect and demand that the guys at the front are built in a way and have that energetic press that isn't going to go missing. Because I think in games gone by, I think Ange has got it tactically wrong where he's involved too many of that front four, whether it be Maddison, Werner, Johnson, who don't do enough off the ball to track back to support the midfield, who then can't get back and support the guys behind them. And I think that when you set up the front four with a Kulusevski in there, with Dominic Solanke, or if Will Lancashire, for example, I think that he's going to need to. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to put right what happened to him in his stuttering start, over in Turkey. But I think you're going to need a little bit of body weight. I think you're going to need some strength, and I think you're going to need people at the top end of the pitch who are going to press and run for days and do it as a team. Because if there's any players in that front 4 or 5 that don't track back, that don't work hard enough, it's going to be too much pressure on the midfield, and then you're going to give away opportunities into the back line when you've got someone in a key crucial position that shouldn't be there, in Archie Gray or whoever it is, right? And it's not going to be easy for Archie Gray wherever he's asked to play, or whoever else it's going to be. It's going to be someone that is going to be under the pressure of the performance, under the pressure of the lights, under the pressure of the Rangers crowd. And so Ange has to be smart here and build the rest of the team around that, with the cognizance of what happens if we transition the ball and lose it too frequently in bad positions. And so for me, it's super important that this game, as I say, I think that the league, in terms of the league at the moment, you look at our performance, our volatility. I think top 4 is done. And so the avenue, the pathway to get into Europe for next season, it's obviously going to come. The easiest way to do it is to go on a cup run. And right now, the Europa League should be a priority for us. We're in that tricky area where we, could really do without having to squeeze 2 more games in the playoffs. And so Rangers tomorrow night for me is probably our most important game of the season, if I'm entirely honest. And I think that, given the circumstances of the injuries and the available players, I think Ange has to treat it that way and pick the guys, as I say, at the top end who are going to help out the guys at the back.
Shawnee, thank you so much. I'm going to come around to you for a prediction in a second. Ash, let's close with you. The debate, it feels like it's taken a bloody long time to get here. I've got to make you laugh. What a show. Yeah, I've got to say, it's been an absolutely tremendous show. And blame it on me when you get 3 talkers together and 2 that do this on the regular with a devil's advocate. And here I am throwing in the subjects like I'm doing. It's all my fault. Blame it on me. Put the blame on me. Ash, let's come to you. Take me away. Rangers in your mind. How big a game is it for you? I talk about the fact that, for Ange, he's won 6 of the 11 Old Firm derbies. And let's be honest about it. Nobody as a club will want to beat him more when he's under pressure than Rangers, right? I mean, look, no matter what we think about last season, about maybe how he judged the Arsenal-Tottenham rival, that rival, as Johnny, I'm sure, will come on to in a second. The Celtic and Rangers rivalry, is just as strong. The hatred there is, just as pure as what it is for Tottenham Arsenal. How important is it, Ash, that he gets the right team, gets the right result, where, again, now he's had that backing from the hierarchy, the dreaded, you'd say, vote of confidence? How big a game is it for you, Ash, in the context of the season and the table, and where it obviously sees us at the moment in terms of our position under him?
I feel like this is the popular corner right here. So I'm going to say that he's done.
We've rotated tonight. Why can't Ange? Come on, we've all rotated here.
Yeah, I feel like, you know what it is? If he goes full strength against Rangers, we're going to see what happened from Roma when we went full strength into the Fulham, or was it the Bournemouth performance? I forget. Either way, we look tired. Yep. So I'm saying that's what's going to happen. If we go full strength against Rangers and we manage to get a result, I think it will affect Southampton. And so are we saying as fans, we've completely written off the league? We're just throwing that league and we're trying to put all of our eggs in that kind of cup performance, because guess what? If we were to lose against Rangers, we're not knocked out. Obviously, we're going to have more games, which is going to ultimately put more strain anyway on the Premier League. This is what I mean by we're doomed either way. Do you know what I mean? because it's going to bite us either now or bite us later on, like depending on the result we get. So if it's a thing where we're lacking legs, they're going to put their B team out, as Johnny said, because they've got a Scottish Cup final. Would it be mad if we put out some of the youngsters, and I'm saying they're mixed mash in terms of, I don't know, Bentancur's out. Like Bentancur's out for whatever reason. Basuma's out for whatever reason.
You mean
put those two...
so obviously you know those two are definitely going to play. We know those two will definitely play.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a double pivot there. For me, that's a double
Yeah.
pivot. Maybe you just use them as you know what they're meant to be, and then in the top of the midfield, you maybe run one of the youngsters up that has legs. For me, Bergvall, I don't know. Everyone be like, no, Bergvall, he can't do it. That switch of play when he came on, I was like, finally, we've got someone that can open the pitch up. Do you know what I mean? As soon as he came against Chelsea, I said, oh my, that's what we've been missing the whole game. Enzo Fernandez was doing that the whole game, and Lavia, and we had no one that was doing that.
Had a good cameo. He had a very good cameo, actually. Right,
that's what I'm saying. In terms of profile, he is physical. He's got a bite into him, and I'm saying if we want legs, he's got a bit of legs. He's got a bit of physicality, and technically, he's not that bad. So I'm saying against the two older heads that are going to miss the Southampton game or anyway, I think that should be in midfield. Then the Archie Gray is going to have to help out with a Dragusin as a right-sided centre-back.
Yep.
And then, unfortunately, the fullback situation is the fullback situation. There's nothing we can do about that. Do you know what I mean? Up top, we might have to, I mean, it depends what you, like I said, what you want to prioritize. You either start, I don't dare I say it, a Werner on the left wing, who I thought when he came on against Chelsea on the right wing, I'm not a fan of Werner, by the way, but when he did come on, he didn't look too bad. So maybe we have to run a Werner. Do you know what I'm saying? And then right wing, it's whatever, isn't it? Johnson came off at halftime. Apparently he was sick, so he didn't play a full 90 either. So we might have to have Timo on the left and Johnson on the right. And I don't know what you lot think, but it's like
John, don't cancel the tickets now, John. Don't cancel.
If Slanky starts and he's tired against Southampton, you just know that's where we're gonna fall off. It's gonna be the difference. So maybe a Lancashire. I don't know. I don't have the answers, bro. I'll be absolutely real. But he did score against Roma.
Yep.
He did score against Roma. So some fans are looking at him like maybe we should start him, maybe give him a go. But we do have serious depth issues. And I fear that if we don't prioritize the league a little piece, because right now we're in a rut, Ange will be out. He
needs results. He needs results.
The P45 will be coming, bro. Huh?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say to you, like, what happened when we played Galatasaray? We rested the players and then we lost to Ipswich.
That's what I'm saying.
It's crazy.
Either way, that's what I'm trying to tell you, Broski.
One
way,
point.
If you keep it, it's a lose-lose situation because we could play a full strength team like we did against Roma. Roma, we went full strength.
Ash,
and still went to bed.
Ange ball is like a ball of Swiss cheese with giant holes in it. Okay, that's what it is.
I mean, the thing is, Shawnee, as well. We've had 1 point after the last 5 Europa League games. We also obviously we know how important Southampton is. I'm not sure. I don't know if you agree, Sean. I don't think he's in a position to be able to rotate much because he needs to get that momentum going ahead of Southampton. Where to anybody on a normal logical fan, they might look at Southampton away being a 3 points and a no-brainer. But I look at that game against Southampton. That won't be easy. I don't think any game now you look at and say quantify that's 3 points. I think we are in need of results. We're in need of building confidence. On that basis, Sean, give me your prediction.
Depending on the team, like I said, I think that he has to go. I think that you have to go all out. For me, his job is hanging on the line in the cups. I think he needs to realise that if we exit the cups, the pressure of him to go, there'll be no more real reasons to hang around if the league continues to dip. And he's a victim of a horrendous injury record. It's not anyone's fault. It is what it is. But I think you have to go as strong as you can to secure that top 8. And if he goes that way, I think we can just about sneak a win. But it's not going to be an easy game. I would say something crazy like 3-2 Tottenham. If, however, he does pick certain players that that gives a little bit too much wiggle room towards the youth or whatever, then I can see us at best getting a 2-2 draw. I think you have to go strong in this one and worry about Sunday or Southampton on next. Worry about that cross that bridge when we come to it.
Just a quick one, Sean. Do you think that Spurs can win Europa? Do you think Like different tactical managers that are out there. Are you confident that Ange can?
No,
Ange can
listen. I 100% acknowledge 100% that if he goes, if we were to draw Turkey again, a team in Turkey or a team in Spain in the semi-finals and have to go away, and in the first leg he thinks we should go there and do gung ho football, then I think you're going to get absolutely, like written off the park. But I still maintain that he is not going to be here if he continues that vision anyway. But I hope that if we can get through this and get to that stage, I hope that at some point the penny will drop, that there is an adaptation that's necessary. If there isn't, it doesn't matter anyway. The guy's not going to be here because it's not going to work. So for me, I think he has to prioritize the cups, because if we lose to United, if something horrible was to happen against Tamworth, or if we dropped out of the last of the Europa League before January or February, then the Europa League out before January, then I think that there's not really going to be any more ability to defend him. There's not, right? For me, it's only because right now I think it would be absolutely outrageously unfair to sack a guy who this season has handled the injuries like he's had, and also got the best result that Tottenham have ever had against the best team in the world on their day. 4-0 against City hasn't been done in Pep's time. I think those things are necessary to remember. And then the fact that he's still in all three competitions. If you sack him now, it's outrageously unfair. If he goes out of the competitions, though, then I think there's nothing much left.
It'll be like what he did to Mourinho.
Look, I'm not going to say. I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say this again, right? The injuries is historical, right? They happened at Celtic, right? And basically, right, the reason why it's not cured in season 2 here is because you're not playing Rangers and Aberdeen one week and Raith Rovers and Kilmarnock the week after. Every game is demanding. And the long and the short of it is, Matty Wells came out and he said the intensity in training has to match the intensity on the pitch during the game. And that's why we're getting so many injuries. That's why we're getting so many injuries.
Yeah, you're right, Johnny. You're right. Yeah, but you've got such a paper thin squad. Thin squad.
And when you say you can't rotate, okay, don't tell me you can't rotate when you're sitting there with Reguilon and Spence and you won't give them time, right? Tell me that after you've given them time and Porro's looking like he needs a 3-week holiday in the Caribbean, and Destiny Udogie is treading water with 15 minutes to go, and you still won't do anything, and then you want to cry about it. No, I'm sorry. No. Listen, I think it's all been said about the really. We must win this game. It's a must-win game. It's not going to be an easy game. But luckily for us, Basuma, brain-dead Basuma is going to be missing for Southampton, so he has to play. Bentancur is going to be missing, so he has to play. So that's that's taken care of. We've got a patchwork centre-back pairing. We've got Porro and Destiny, who are treading water, as I said, and the rest plays itself. I think it is what it is. But I think all Spurs fans want to see, when we play Rangers, fight and passion
Spot on.
for that badge, right? And leave everything on the pitch. Then the fans can stand there and accept it. What I don't want to see is some of these abject performances that we have seen over the last few weeks, right? And I'm sorry, the buck stops with the manager there, because it's his job to inspire, right? When I listen to Martin Luther King, he's inspirational. When I listen to people, like, they inspire me. I listen to Ange, he doesn't inspire me. I'm sure he's different in the changing room, but I don't see it on. I don't see it on the sideline. I hope he turns it round. I hope we go to Rangers, and I hope we put in a tremendous performance and we win the game. But I'm going for a draw. I hope we win, but I'm going to go for a draw. 2-2. I can't see us not conceding goals. They've got a very young team. They've got Igmane, who's quite a good little creative player. They've got the young Brazilian left back. Again, young, likely to make mistakes, but he got legs, and that's where I've just a little bit concerned, because, as I said, they brought in lots of youngsters, very similar to what we've done, and they'll be probably blooding them in this game.
Johnny, thank you so much, mate. Listen, we wish you a very safe trip up there and back, and we'll see you on here soon in much more controlled and organised circumstances like I normally do produce. It's funny. The last show I moaned and said, I don't think I've been producing the best shows. On this one, I've completely lost control. So please accept my apologies. But like I say, it's great conversation with great guests that come on here. And the important thing for me is that everybody gets the opportunity to say what they want to say, how they want to say it. So Jonny, thank you so much, mate. An absolute pleasure. I think you're back on with us. You're back on with us next week. I think we've got a few more shows to come. I think me and Jonny are both counting down if we're going to survive our marriages after this football club has whatever it's done to us. Ash, I want to say a massive, massive thank you. You're an absolute star, mate. I'm so sorry. We are going to reroute to Ash's show now. Ash, there's still a show going on, right? Is there a show going on?
Yeah, there's still a show going on. Love anyway.
Checking.
Love.
Just double checking.
Cool.
Ash, you're an absolute superstar.
It's all good.
Prediction, Ash, what are we going for?
Oh, geez. 1-0 Spurs. Come on, up the Spurs. Come on, let's go.
Clean sheet. Controversial.
At Ibrox. I thought that this show's turning a corner. This show has turned a corner. I can't believe it. Listen, we better go there before something else goes absolutely wrong. I want to say again, a massive thanks for watching all
Southampton as well.
Oh my God, we are getting carried away now. We better end it before we do get over head over heels. We've had over nearly 5,000 of you watch the show live on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, and YouTube, guys. Thank you so much for all your incredible support for the show, from the wonderful Jonny Hamme, from the brilliant Spurs, his very own Shawnee at the Spurs Talk Show. Shawnee, we'll see you very soon. We look forward to seeing Shawnee back more. And for the wonderful Ashmatic at the Spurs Kings, we have been the last one on Spurs. Thank you so much for incredible support. As always, keep safe, keep well, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.